Nice. Okay, before this degenerates any further, I'm an engineer, so mine would probably have to be something like bulldozer, or just dozer for short.
Because that would work so well.
That would work so well. If you you can see that, right? So I want to talk about divisions tonight, and I want to start out with an experience I had as an engineering student. And engineers, even though we're not very good at it, we all have to take a writing course. Luckily, that is one of the things that I can do. So I can get by in a writing course. I can go through and do pretty good. I'm in this writing course with a bunch of engineers, and it's not going well. The teacher is really struggling to maintain control of the class, and I mean, she's got a bunch of engineers, and we don't want to be there. It's like a checklist, and we're done with it. And so she starts looking at me as the one who can actually do it right. And she starts singling me out and making comparisons like, hey, the rest of you guys, why don't you guys write more like Aaron? And I'm just a freshman, and I'm trying to like keep a very low profile. I don't want any of this. And so one day she just did something. I think it was she called me out in front of the class as like being the you're the best student in the class or something, and I got really ticked off at her. So I go back to my computer. I sit down on my email, and my mind is churning here. I'm like, she's not a very good teacher, which is the reason that they're not writing very well. And I'm thinking of all these things that she could do better, and I'm just over and over and just churning it up. So I end up writing up this email to her, and I give her several suggestions about how she can maybe become a better teacher, maybe how she can run her class better. And then I tell her to basically leave me alone and stop picking on me. And then I hit send. After I did that, I realized that may not have been a very good decision. And so I had to sit down with her, and we had some very difficult conversations, and I managed not to get kicked out of that class or anywhere else. But it's funny, when I started thinking about this divisions thing, I looked back on at that situation, and I realized that for me was the incident where I really had to start thinking about, look, I'm an adult. I'm going to get into situations where there's going to be divisions, where there's going to be conflicts with me and the people around me. And I think that's true, especially as we move into community. And especially in the church. We're here being very personal, very real at these tables. And as we do that, we're human. There's going to come a point when we're going to offend each other. When you're going to be sitting here and something somebody says, or something somebody does or doesn't do is going to hurt you. And that applies anywhere where we're building relationships. Whether it's at work, whether it's in our family, with our wives, our kids, whatever environment we're in where we have to deal with humans, we're going to eventually create divisions. And specifically, when we're getting our junk out at these tables, I can almost guarantee there's going to be a time when you're going to share something and you're going to feel like somebody jumped on you, that they attacked you, or you said something and they were more interested in fixing your problem than they were in helping draw you towards God and point you towards God. And so the question is, what do we do about that? I know for me, my instinct either goes towards the lashing out on the one side, or it goes towards kind of internalizing it and saying, yeah, I got offended by that, but I'm not going to deal with it because that takes conflict, and I just kind of shove it down and don't deal with it. And I don't think either of those things is the way that God pictures us working as a body, because that's what the picture is in the Bible of this group that we've got here. It's of a Bible, or of a Bible. It's of a body. When we're all different parts of the body, we all have different functions, but when we work together cohesively, then we can seek God's will, and then we can see what God wants to do with us. When we have divisions between us, when we have things that get in between us, conflicts or whatever they are, that we don't deal with, that messes with that. That interrupts what God is trying to do with the body. It creates disunity. And so when I look in the Bible, and I mean, when I look in our lives, you look at a body. What is it that we want our bodies to have? We want them to function flawlessly. You look at a professional wrestler. For him to do his thing, they have to do this choreographed dance. It has to function. And so God's desire for us is clear, that when stuff gets between us, when we have this conflict, what He wants is reconciliation. He wants us to come together, work it out, and move toward it in a way that we get first the vertical right. You know, when there's conflict, first we get it right with God, and then we get it right with our brothers. So I want to hit on a couple principles that I've learned as I've gone through conflict, and really it kind of went back to that story of me and the writing teacher. Of, you know, that was some of the stuff that I looked in the Bible and I saw this is how God deals with it. The first thing I learned is that when I have conflict, I can't deal with it out of anger. You know, when I'm angry, when I'm in that situation, when I'm all churned up, got all those things going through my mind about how offended or how hurt I am, that's not the time for me to get on email or get on the phone or send a text to that person and tell them what I feel about them. You know, the appropriate response in that point is to go to God and say, God, here's the situation, here's what I'm feeling, what's your will for me in the situation? And a lot of the times, it's going to lead towards a kind of a self-examination, right? Talks about in the Bible, Jesus talks about before you look at the speck in your brother's eye, look at the plank in your own eye. And a lot of the times when I take offense to something, or when I'm hurt by something, it's because somebody told me something about myself that's true that I didn't want to hear, or somebody told me how I should react or the way I should do something, and in a lot of cases, you know, it's right, that's good advice, but I want to control my life, and I want to hold on to it, and I want to figure it out my own way. I don't want somebody else telling me what to do. Or it's just that, you know, say we're at a table and somebody says something, and they don't know it's inappropriate. They don't mean to hurt you, or they didn't mean to, you know, offend you. They may not know the whole situation, but they did, and you take offense from it. You know, when I look at myself and I say, why is it that I'm offended? And just ask God to reveal that to me and work through that. A lot of the times it goes from a situation where I have to go to somebody and say, hey, look, you did this and you really hurt me, to where I can go to them and say, when you said this, this is what I perceived, and this is what I felt, and I know it wasn't right. I know you didn't mean that, but I need to clear the air between us. You know, and those two conversations are very, very different. It's much easier to have reconciliation when you realize, you know, what's the truth about yourself? Why did you take offense? And it is for me. And then the third thing is that I learned about myself is even though I'm really good at sitting down an email and firing off a blistering email, I don't like conflict. In fact, that's the reason that I do email. And for some people, it may be other things to avoid conflict. Maybe it's just, you know, getting in somebody's grill and shouting. Maybe it's totally leaving and leaving a note behind or whatever it is. But I don't avoid conflict. I don't want to do conflict. The problem is that even if I get the vertical right, you know, even if I go to God, I get it right with Him, if there's still a division between me and my brothers, and between us as a community, that still gets in the way of unity of this body that we're trying to create. You know, that still creates divisions within our community. And that was what a couple weeks ago, you know, I was talking about that between me and some of the guys here, that I let that divisions, junk that I had between them, I didn't deal with it. I didn't get it out, and eventually it led to rebellion. And I think that's where it goes. Eventually Satan's going to keep bringing that up and up and up, and it's going to be disunity. So what does it look like? This is where I'm going to defer to Jesus. I'm going to go to the Bible, because obviously I'm not really good at conflict, and I'm not good at handling it myself.